Greece right now. Am I right?
That is correct. I'm in sunny but rather chilly Greece, yes.
And this is so good that we are at the same time zone.
That's unusual. Yeah, it is fabulous.
Because usually you are all over the world, and
that's been true until quite recently. Yes, not so much anymore.
and how do you react right now to everything that is happening around the world? The fact that the world has stopped, and we're lucky to be in Greece. We are lucky to be in Israel. But all of your plans, all of the events, everything is on pause or stopped, and the whole world is experiencing almost the same thing.
Yeah. I learned something. My beautiful wife, Brandon Bays, she wrote something in her original book 20 odd years ago, where she quoted Sri Nisargadatta, who said, "Know whatever comes unexpected to be a gift from God, which if you use it wisely will surely," and I'm paraphrasing here, "serve you well, push you in the right direction." And he said, "It's only that which you strive for out of your own imagination that causes you trouble." And so, of course, when all this happened, there was initially some fear here. There was wondering, okay, what does this mean? What the hell is going to happen next? And then I was due to leave Australia, where I'd been for 3 months, and come back for a short time here in Greece. And Cliff and I, Cliff, who's my wingman in the journey, we got back into Greece the day before they shut it down. And then, of course, we're in lockdown here. And so, it's been a strange ride, because the journey is predominantly, or has been until now, a live seminar company. This is what we do. And of course, live seminars are the first thing that go out of the window when there's social distancing and when there are travel restrictions in place. So we've taken the time to kind of reimagine the way we can reach out to people and offer them life-transforming skills on the internet. And so we're just figuring out how to do exactly what you and I are doing here. And so it's been a time of creativity. It's been a time of, yes, a little bit of rest and introspection, but then going, okay, if I know that this unexpected thing is in some way a gift from God, what next? What do we do? And so all sorts of beautiful things are coming out of even these, painful and massively pressuring times.
Yes, and we are lucky to have you here, because Kevin is a world-leading expert in the Enneagram, and we will talk about that. And in '94, you experienced the healing power of the journey together with Brandon, and it helped you. It freed you completely from 30 years of stress, anxiety, and depression. Yeah. And I would like you to share a little bit about that, because I experienced it, and it was amazing tool, and combining the journey method.
It's extraordinary, Durham. Just briefly here, I came to the journey right when Brandon was starting it in 1994, and due to some childhood traumas, I'd experienced depression cyclically since that time, since age 8, until I came to the journey 37 and a half, and very nearly 30 years. And in a really short period of time, got to the underpinning reasons that I'd lived life with these cycles of stress, cycles of anxiety, and deep cycles of depression, and completely pulled them up by the root, just resolved the traumas. Came to a peace inside myself that I never thought was possible. And truthfully, life has been an entirely different experience since that time. From struggling to get out of bed and just kind of striving for the next thing that was going to make me happy and make me fixed in life, make me right in life. I turned very quickly to the type of person who's enthusiastic to get out of bed, grateful to be living this life in this body at this time, and experiencing life in a way that I never dreamt was possible. So from a place of positivity, from a place of love, from a place of wholeness, from a place of recognizing my cup is always overflowing, and life, please bring it on. I'm enjoying the ride. So like this.
and amazing because you were managing all the daughter companies of the journey all over the world, and
Right.
you wrote 2 books together with Brandon.
Correct, yeah.
And you are co hosting the No Ego retreat that I experienced just last December in Israel. I think that the first one and maybe the last one. So I was lucky.
You may be right there, Doran. It was an intense experience, that's for sure. And yeah, I mean, look, the No Ego retreat is a deep program that we run. I mean, historically, it's been run live. This year, we don't know. We may bring it online in some form or other. We may bring Enneagram work online. And yes, definitely, it combines journey work with this extraordinary teaching that is developed out of ancient Sufi wisdom. It's a model that largely gets used to describe personality these days, and it's interesting but unfortunate also, because the Enneagram has got so much more to offer. It's been adapted and modernized throughout the 20th century into the 21st century, and yet its wisdom is timeless. Its wisdom points us back to the truth of who we really are, and really unmasks the ways in which we have tripped ourselves up, falling into mistaken identification, and then the ego games that come out of this, like the automatic pilot, knee-jerk reactions we have to life, the way we view ourselves as unique and individual things, items, beings. And the Enneagram has got a very disarming way of stripping that away from us so we can see something much more deep and true and profound about ourselves and about our possibilities in life. So I love it. I'm passionate about it for what it points to, not for what it describes at a personality level, but for what it can allow us to access and to clear, and the way it can allow us to ultimately live.
Yeah, here is Lior is saying, great to see you both together.
Beautiful.
And, this is wonderful, Lior, and we have
lovely to see his face.
And Kevin, first of all, thank you for all the videos that you are putting free over the web, the internet site, that you are doing for yourself and together with Brandon in this time of Corona. You are providing a lot of content and a lot of tools that can really help in this times of Corona. And thank you for doing that. You're going on live every day and delivering a lot of wisdom, ancient wisdom. And,
you know, I hope so. I hope so. I was just going to say, Doran, that, you know, I know before I came to this work, I've got a pretty good idea of how I would react to current circumstances, and it wouldn't be healthy. I'd be stressed out. I'd be freaked out. I'd be, you know, worrying about, you know, what does this mean? What have I got to do? How can I compensate? How can I survive this? I mean, I would have been like a bag of nerves and collapsed at the same time, and trying to push through. It would have been messy, right? And I've seen over 26 years now of being with the journey, people really come into a place of deep peace and wholeness inside themselves. So they know the essence of who they are. They're at home inside their own skins. They're at peace in their own body with their own being, and living from a completely different place. So rather than knee-jerk reacting to life, like opening, feeling, and responding genuinely, authentically, healthily to what life throws at them. And so, of course, when this current crisis really kicked off and we became aware of what a global threat it was, Brandon and I and Gabby, who also is our co-director in the journey, got together and said, the first thing we need to do here is to reach as many people as we can by whatever mechanism we can to share some of this. Because so many of us believe that only the things that we've become conditioned to do are open to us, because this is who I am, this is the way I am, this is my personality, and therefore, I've got to do X, Y, and Z the way I've always done it, but do it more. And that leads us into a deeper trap. It leads us into more pain. It leads us into more suffering. And there are so many things that we can do that are practical, that are relatively simple, that can cause us to respond much more wholesomely, organically, healthily under these circumstances. And so, yes, our instinct for the last, well, we've been here for 6 weeks in Greece now, and I think for 4 or 5 of those, it's like, however we can reach out, however we can help, whatever, I mean, you know, small benefits we can bring to whomever we can reach is absolutely our prayer. It's what we're aiming for.
Yes, and talking about the Enneagram, you know, a lot of people, including myself, have done the questionnaires.
Right.
We thought that the results that we are getting from the questionnaires will tell us exactly who we are and how to act in the world. And I was walking like many, I think, thousands or hundreds of thousands of people thinking that I'm 2, because this is what questionnaires told me, until I experienced the work with you, and I realized few things. And I would like you to dive in. First of all, that I can find myself in each and every one.
Right. Well, let's speak to that in order here, because you've got a couple of points there. The first point is that, you know, a lot of people read Enneagram books and they're curious, thinking they're going to discover who they are. And this is a fallacy, because the Enneagram points to who we are not. It points to a series of mistakes we've made in life that have then caused us to identify as something, as somebody with personality and characteristic traits. It is not who we are. So the Enneagram will never tell you who you are. If you use the Enneagram combined with work like journey work to really penetrate the veils of fixation, so to look through deeper than the lies that the Enneagram represents, then absolutely you can wake up to the self. You can wake up to who and what you really are. But none of us, if you know the Enneagram, none of us is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. It doesn't define us. This model does the opposite of defining us. It defines who we're not. Then you're asking about the Enneagram quizzes. I was the same as you, Doran. You know, when I did the first Enneagram test, it totally misrepresented, you know, the identification that's been here. I came up as either on the Enneagram model 8 or 3, and my core fixation was 9. And I damn well knew that my core fixation was 9 from the kickoff, from the start of reading this stuff. And yet the Enneagram tests pointed to something else. The reason I think this happens is twofold. One is that you can't really diagnose any type by looking at behavior. And most of the questionnaires look at behavior and they make the assumption, because I behave this way, it must mean this is the fixation, this is the enneatype. And it doesn't. What defines enneatype essentially at the deepest level are the core avoidances that we make as if they're life or death emotionally. So what we avoid emotionally and why we've done that since childhood is the only definitive pointer in this. The second thing why I think Enneagram tests are so inaccurate is that, of course, we are self-diagnosing here. We're looking at ourselves through the distortion of our own egos, through the distortion of our own fixations. And so we see ourselves differently than other people might see us. And the way we answer the questions is polluted in that way. And that creates another level of inaccuracy in the tests. I think for me, you know, my avoidance of my real bloody issues in life, you know, the real things that I needed to face, pushed me from 9 to diagnosing myself as being at 3 or 8, because I had an idealized version of myself. And I didn't want to be a sleepy 9. I didn't want to be this self-narc. Even though I knew that was true about me, when I answered the test, there was subtle shading in the way that I answered the questions. And so it produced an inaccurate result. So I'm not a lover of Enneagram tests. I'm much more, I'm interested in getting to the underbelly here and finding out what is it that has set this whole thing up from the start. And that can give us some really profound insights into not just the games that we play and what we can do about that, what we can do to free ourselves, but into the truth of our own essence. It's that powerful.
Yeah. So first, for everyone, the Enneagram is not what we thought. It's not who we are. It's who we are not.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
The second thing is, if you have done the questionnaires and you think that you are not something, come do the work with Kevin and you will realize.
Thank you. It's a fascinating thing, Doran. I mean, several years ago, I worked with a company that was putting out beautiful stuff online, and they were recording a sequence on Enneagram. And I was in the studio when they were pulling in the people who were supposed to be representing the exemplars. And about half of them were completely misidentified because they'd made this mistake. They'd gone, because I do this, because I behave in these and these ways, must mean, if I extrapolate backwards, this is the fixation, except they would call it personality type, which is a phrase that I'm not that keen on. They were inaccurate in so many cases because of this. And then the material that they subsequently put out, I mean, for me, it's going to be confusing at best and I mean, unhelpful at worst, because they're not getting it. And so if there's one message out of this, if you know the Enneagram, please let go of the behaviors, let go of any working backwards to figuring out your fixation from your behaviors. It comes from, what do you clearly avoid emotionally? What are the core avoidances that you've had since childhood? And therefore, what do you need more than anything? It's like a half a notch above that. What instinctively drives you, born from your need to avoid these things? And that's the only way I know that really gets it back to basics and creates like an accurate frame of identification.
Totally. Let's dive in and explain a little bit the Enneagram for the newcomers, the people that are so deep into the work. Yes.
Okay, so show us the first diagram here, Doran, and I'll talk us through it. That's it. Okay. Okay, so we've got the messages overlap. That's fantastic. Much better here. So we're looking at a basic model here. At the top, you'll see it says Enneagram names and images. The images are a little bit small, but you'll get it. And you'll see what we've got is essentially a 9-pointed diagram with the points circumscribed around a broken circle. So there are 9 different types of fixation, 9 different types belonging to the Enneagram. Enneagram itself means, it's simply a Greek for 9-pointed model. So it's a 9-pointed diagram. And you'll see, first of all, bring your attention to the inside. I know it's tempting to look at the pictures to start with, but come with me on this. We'll do it sequentially. Look at the red triangle in the middle, because this is a basic key to the Enneagram. It says at the top of the triangle, body, and then you'll see on the right, emotion, and on the left, mind. This is the fundamental building block of the Enneagram, because Enneatypes come about, our fixations, our egos come about when normally very early in childhood, we identify as a body or as emotion or as mind. So prior to having a separate sense of self, we'll say there's spacious awareness here, there's openness, there's pure consciousness, there's love, bliss. And then something happens where we question, who or what is this? Who am I? Is a question that we're all asking in relation to self, in relation to outside world from a very early stage. Now, some of us conclude, I am this body, this physical form. And if we do that, it comes with a huge stack of baggage that is predictable and lasts a lifetime unless we wake up to the mistake. Because if pure awareness is now contained in a body, it feels like we're trapped. It feels like we've been imprisoned, straitjacketed. And it causes anger and rage. The rage of being controlled, the rage of being imprisoned. And forever and a day from there, if we've identified as a body, we are trying desperately by whatever measure we can use to get control back and to avoid being controlled. So for the top 3 points there, these are body identification points. 8, 9, and 1, and we'll come back to them. These all have issues with anger and rage, so that if they get triggered, if somebody looks at them the wrong way, if somebody insults them, if they get cut up on the freeway when they're driving, the instant reaction is anger or rage. Whether they feel it or not, whether they express it or not, it's there all the time. Their need to control is absolute, it's existential. They've got to have control. Control of self, control of emotions, control of circumstances, control of you, control of others, control of life. Like this, it's a life or death issue. So those themes go on in life perpetually. Alternately, if you look down to the right-hand side, it says emotion. A very different experience here, because emotions are some biochemical upwelling in the body. So we're identifying with a state. We're identifying with a kinesthetic feeling inside the body here. So these people who, from early in childhood, decide, okay, this experience of emotions must define me. This is who I am. They have a different sense here. They have a sense that, prior to identifying as a separate being, there's been love, there's been bliss. It's been, in the Abrahamic tradition, Garden of Eden existence. And then what? Then these painful emotions, then these torturing emotions, then these tumultuous upwellings, and I don't know what to do with it. And I must be being punished by God for something that I don't know, something that I'm not aware that I've done. And so huge sense of shame with these points, and a sense of unworthiness, a sense of worthlessness, innate. And so the need to wear a mask or make an image of lovability and worth. And their whole existence revolves around this. So unworthiness, worthlessness, shame underneath the surface, and then a mask of approvability, a mask of lovability, a mask of uniqueness. It's a very different game here. And again, it's a theme that goes through life and doesn't stop unless we do something to wake up to the initial lie. The lie is, I am, in this case, emotion or emotions. Third variant, if you look on the left-hand side of the Enneagram here, is mind. In this case, pure consciousness now wakes up and goes, what am I? There's thinking here. And there's, there are thoughts, there are pictures, there are words flooding through consciousness. The mistake is I am the mind. I am these thoughts. I am this intellect. And it's very destabilizing to identify in that way. There's nothing solid. There's nothing reliable about this. There's nothing you can rely on at all about this. And so it evokes fear and terror, and subsequently fear of fear and fear of terror. And this is a background throughout life. And then because we're identified with mind, we're seeking answers in the mind as an antidote to the fear. And we're constantly trying to figure things out, to understand life, to understand ourselves, to understand circumstances, to figure out where the danger is, to figure out where the next catastrophe lies and what I can do to prevent it. So it causes us to have these issues for a lifetime again, until we wake up to the initial mistakes here. Now, this is what most people won't tell you, is that it all boils back down to this. What initial mistake did you make? Did you identify as a body, as a thing? Or did you identify as emotion and have an image of self that you relied on? Or was it mental? Did you identify with intellect and with thinking capacity? So we've got the basic 3 types here, and then we'll see if they split into 9 variants. It's a 3 times 3 model, because for each of the triads of the body, the emotion, and the mind, there are 3 variations of how we react to the stresses of that identification. We can manage our emotions. We can manipulate our emotions essentially in one of 3 ways. We either inflate and we become kind of apparently bigger than the problem. So we puff ourselves up, pretend we've got all our shit together. We don't have a care in the world. It's all about someone else, and we're inflated. We are just kind of, puffed up and sometimes a little bit pompous, sometimes, just noble internally and reaching out to help others. It plays out in very different ways. But inflation, bigger than the problem. Inflation means an inflated sense of self because we're scared in some way or another and we want to manage our emotions. Second version, obviously, would be the opposite of that, which is deflation. So to manage and to ameliorate sharp emotions, we collapse, we hide, we cocoon ourselves, we withdraw from life, we pull back and disengage and disassociate. So we kind of, ultimately we can flatline it in this way, or we can really be, negatively beating ourselves up and dwelling in a self-torture zone that can happen as well. But deflation here, the opposite of inflation, same ultimate goal is to turn down the potency of our core fears. So inflation, deflation. The third version of emotional manipulation is rigidity. And with rigidity, we brace against our emotions. We brace against life. We barricade ourselves. We build walls. We just put steel shutters in front of ourselves to try and control the emotional responses in our body. So this is a harsh, it's a more anxious, uptight variant of emotional manipulation. And so if we apply those three and we go inflate, deflate, rigid, that'll give us some deep insights into what is actually taking place with these cartoon characters here. So with point 8, we've got at the top of the triangle here, body point identification with inflation. So I need control. I need to be in control. I need to avoid being controlled. Yes, there's anger and rage here. And guess what? There's also inflation. So I'm overtly angry. And that anger is used to control people around me, to stop me being terrified internally, terrified of being out of control, terrified that I might be weak and vulnerable. And so you see there's a parody there, the bully. It's also known as the boss, the challenger, the warrior. It's got a lot of different names. I've just picked one there because it kind of fits the cartoon. But someone who is stridently in control, domineering. So it's an inflated version of the body point games. If you contrast that with the next one along and go 9, 9 is a deflated version of the body point games. So in this case, we collapse. We actually get terrified of our own energy. We get terrified of anger, we get terrified of rage, our own and other people's, and we pretend to be nice, we pretend to be reasonable, rational. We peacecape at all costs because we're terrified of our own anger, and our control games go underground and they become passive-aggressive, they become passive-resistant, and the amount of energy it takes to keep anger under wraps, which is like keeping life force under wraps, is exhausting. And so we get tired and we need a lot of sleep. Now, you can see the parodies here. You can see the behaviors here. The question is why? This is why we were saying the Enneagram tests are not really very accurate. We need to cut back to the why at all costs here. At every point we can, why is this behavior manifesting? It's manifesting as an avoidance of what we most fear emotionally. If we come over to the third version of the body points here, the perfectionist, this obviously, you can tell by the name here, is a rigid point. You can see the little angel and devil on top of this guy's head there. The perfectionist is rigid, rule-bound, striving to perfect life, striving to correct any perceived imperfection in life. And so gets, rule-bound, incredibly uptight, finger pointing at self, finger pointing at others, and it's the version of anger here is really kind of like corked anger, like somebody's bottled it and trapped it in a bottle and shaken the bottle so it's under pressure. It comes out in outbursts of outrage. So the moral correctionist here, this would be known as the critic, the judge, the ruler. Internally, very black and white version of life. Is it morally correct or incorrect? And a lot of rules around moral correction and ethics in life. Then if we come down and we look at the emotional points here, very different animals here. These have identified with emotion. And then if we again apply the inflation, deflation, rigidity overlay here, we'll see point 2 actually becomes inflated. So I'm ashamed, I'm feeling, I mean, essentially right at the core of me, unworthy, unlovable, but I cover it over and I pretend to be the most lovable person in the world because I'm selfless. And there's the inflation. I don't have any needs. It's all about you. I don't have any issues. Let me reach out and embrace you and help you with your issues. And I turn into this loving helper, known as the caretaker, the self-sacrificer also. And they, they're warm, gushy, romantic, reaching out people, but actually inside the opposite is true. As is true for all of us, what you see on the surface is the opposite of the deepest truth about our insecurities. It's compensatory. What you're looking at here is our compensatory expression, because we don't want to face, we don't even want to admit what we're experiencing at the deepest level. So the loving helper, inflated version, noble sense of self, prideful caretaking of others, belief that I can love you, understand your needs, caretake you better than anyone else in the world. What's taking place underneath? Entirely different. Then we come down to point 3. Point 3 is the achiever, the status seeker, the magician, they're sometimes called. This case, rigid version of these emotional identifications and games. They kind of give up on the need for love that's here with all of them, with all the emotional points, because they feel like they've been separated from love. They're reaching for love. They're trying to create an image of lovability. But with the achiever, they've settled for approval, respect, and they become the workaholics. They become the ones who must win, must be the best, and look like the best at all costs. Hence the ladder in this graphic here, kind of, you climb the ladder to reach the stars. It's like you've got to be the top of the pile. You've got to increasingly win and accrue the results of your achievements in order to climb over other people, get up the ladder to the ultimate prize of self-worth, because underneath for all these points is devastatingly low self-worth. So rigid in that I'm driven. I have to be efficient in the way that I create success so I can look like a winner. Then if you come down to 4, very different animal here, still emotionally identified, but with point 4, the deflated version of the emotional points. So the tragic romantic, the individualist, like this, the poet, the artist, they are often self-absorbed and dwelling in the darkness in life. So they've deflated, they've withdrawn from some connection, even though all emotional points want to reach out to connect. The way that 4s connect is by disconnecting. It's like a spider trying to lure the fly into the web. And they identify with stories of brokenness at the deepest level. I'm special because and different because I'm broken, I'm flawed. And they tell themselves stories of self-abasement, stories of woe internally to boost their sense of being special and exempt from the normal rules of life. As a seduction mechanism, they want ultimately to compensate for the unworthiness and the unlovability by being unique and loved for their broken, flawed, individual uniqueness. It's a very different animal there. Then if we come across to point 5, we'll see the first of the mind points here. We know with all the mind points, the undercurrent of fear is always here, fear of fear. And at point 5, this is the deflated version of the mind points. And so the nerd, the geek, the professor, the expert, the absent-minded professor sums it up pretty well here. What do we do to compensate for the fear? Well, we retreat, we withdraw, we hide in our metaphorical or literal caves, and then we try to learn some narrow band information that will allow us to understand the meaning of life and to avoid the risk of meaninglessness. Here we're terrified of exposure. Being exposed is not knowing enough. or the fact that the universe may not have meaning. That's existentially terrifying to us. So we collapse, we withdraw, we disassociate from life, we cut off a lot of contact. These people at the moment, by the way, are, I think, the only ones on the Enneagram who going, lockdown, great. It's like I've wanted to do that all my life. I just wanted to have a good excuse to withdraw and hide. And so they're the ones who are, I think, coping most naturally under these circumstances. Then if we come up to the mind points, and we'll see the doubter. This could also be known as the team player, is known as the joiner. Gosh, I'm forgetting. There are loads of other names here for the watchdog is one of them for the 6 here. This is the rigid version of dealing with the fears of the mind. And the way 6 does that is in multiple ways. One of them is by doubting everything, becoming suspicious of everything. You see the 2 question marks there. It's like, should I not? Will I, won't I? Black, white, yes, no. Like this, constantly internally questioning this way or this way. Looking for an authority figure, then mismatching any advice that they get. They love to join, so they become team players. They're real kind of tribalists. They love to belong to the family because there's safety with us if we can notionalize that the danger is on the outside with them. And so these are the great belongers. They could catastrophize us as well. These are the ones who are telling us at the moment, well, I've been planning for this catastrophe for the last 10 or 20 years, Now I was right. Something was going to go wrong at some point. These are the preppers as well. You see a lot of it in the States with the people who are building the underground bunkers and stocking them up with arms and food and God knows what, so they can survive, a nuclear winter or a coronavirus extended outbreak. They want to be prepared at all costs. So the boy scouts, the girl guides, that type of thing. Then we come finally back up to the last of the mind points here. This is the inflated mind point, the generalist, the eternal teenager, like the escape artist, the Renaissance man or woman here. They keep busy to avoid the fear. So they're constantly planning what's next, what's the idealized version of tomorrow that I can imagine that will keep me out of the fear that's here today. So constantly looking for the silver lining in the cloud and what they can move on to next, or what they can distract themselves from with behavior, how they can just distract themselves more accurately. And so you see the one-man band there. They're constantly spinning so many plates because it distracts the mind from the fear. It's like speed skating on thin ice. You've got to keep moving fast in order to avoid stopping and then avoid the danger of crashing through into the fear that's underneath. So we know the parodies that describe personality at the surface level here. The interesting thing is, what is that actually pointing at the deepest level? And fundamentally, it's identification mistakenly as body, mind, emotion. And then from there, certain further ramifications. Bring the second slide up, Don, would you? And let's just take another quick look there and see where that can lead us. Because this one will tell us something in a little bit more detail here. We've got a simplified diagram. There we go. And you can see the same triangle. You can see right at the corner, right in the center there, I am, and this is the core mistake that we make of identification. I am the body leads to anger and rage and the need for control, and that includes the need to avoid being controlled. Existential games there. I am, mistakenly, the emotion or the emotions, then unworthiness, also shame in there, and the need for love and approval, the need to create an image of lovability and approbation. Universal games, lifelong games, existential games. And the third one, I am the mind as a mistake, then ergo, fear and terror as a wash through life. It's there in the background all the time. We may experience it as anxiety, we may experience it as any form of fear or even shaking terror. It doesn't go. It kind of wells up and subsides considerably in life, but it's there. We know it's there as a background. And then the need to know, the need to understand, the need to figure out whatever it is I need to figure out. whether this be in terms of action, in terms of practicality, in terms of understanding. I need to know how to get out of the fear, how to manage the fear, how to minimize the fear. And then if we just look around again, we'll see, in addition to these, we've got some key emotional avoidances that apply to each type. So we said the body was inflated body point. So you'll see the I next to 8 there. This is inflation combined with the mistake of body identification. Then what? Well, the body is tough, right? The body is domineering, bulldozing, bullish, absolutely overtly controlling. Why is that? The reason is they are terrified of weakness, vulnerability, impotence, powerlessness under the surface. You know, their real self-image, when you strip away the levels, is of a skinless baby that they have nothing to protect themselves with. And so through life, obviously, they're compensating massively for that fear, because they fear that, you know, they would die if they just stopped and opened and surrendered to life. So what you see at the surface is the exact opposite of the fear that defines the fixation. And then if you look at, you go on to 9, and you see rage as a fear here. So we're terrified of the rage that is actually driving us as part of the body point fixation. Deflated version, so there's a collapse here, self-narcotization, also known as the peacemaker, the ambassador, the couch potato. Fear of discomfort, fear of like abrasion on the body, creating discomfort, because discomfort could make me very angry, and I'm terrified of anger. Insignificance, the fear that who we are is totally insignificant. Because why? Because as the peacemaker, we've given up every opinion we ever had. We've tried to agree with everyone to make the peace, to jump to compromise. And we forget, totally sell out and forget who we are at the core. If we move on, the perfectionist. Why is someone showing up as a perfectionist? Because their fear of imperfection, condemnation, and damnation. It's like this is the fixation that views life as a karmic balance. You know, I have to earn the points in order to avoid damnation. And it's constant striving here, constant trying to improve life and God's creation, if you like, because I'm terrified, ultimately, of being damned. Then if you come down to the other points, and again, these are defining undercurrents here. With the loving helper, what am I terrified of? Unlovability, being unwanted, and being abandoned. These are life and death issues for all of us, according to our fixation. And so we're constantly striving to prove this is not true about me. This is not who I am. Who I am is this facade that I'm now presenting to the world. With 3, rigid form of emotional fixation. Why am I striving in this way? Why do I need to create this facade, this image of success and worth? Because I'm terrified of failure. I'm terrified of worthlessness and emptiness at the deepest level. And my whole life is a game of compensation, as it is for all of us. With the 4, tragic romantic, I'm special, I'm unique, I'm super talented, I'm this artist who is yet unexpressed, but you know, the latent talent is here. Why? Because I'm terrified underneath that I'm absolutely ordinary, that I'm mundane, that I'm the same as everyone else. And I'm afraid of any emotional shallowness because my identity is built on the notion of depth, of connection, of empathy, of dwelling in the profound depth of emotions that are available to humans. And I'm terrified of abandonment. So again, my whole personality is a show. It's a sham designed to hide this stuff from me and from the world. Same principles apply with the other 3 here. With the nerd, the geek, the professor, what is it ultimately? Why do I need expertise? Why do I need to know the fine print behind the fine print? Why am I striving to understand the meaning of life, the mind of God, if you like? Because I'm terrified of exposure, being exposed, that I don't have enough knowledge to keep me safe. I'm terrified of emotionality because I've disassociated emotionality to concentrate totally on mental concepts and constructs. And I'm terrified that life might ultimately be meaningless. I'm terrified that there's nothing actually behind the screen. Terrified that ultimately there might be no meaning to understand here, because my notion of safety is built on understanding the depth of what there is to understand in life. So what you see at the surface often can be, it can come across as intellectually combative or arrogant, because I'm trying to prove to myself and the world I know, when underneath I'm terrified that I really don't know. With point 6, we said that was a rigid form of mind point games. The doubter, the security seeker, the team player, so on. And so here we see what? We see questioning, like, is it not? So prevarication, back and forth, never settling. We see a show of put together competence. Like they're often very like held together and presented almost as some kind of, vision of competence to the world. You'd never know that they had any doubts underneath the surface. It's like, yes, I can do it. I'll do a good job and I'll do the job well. They become very formulaic. They've got a lot of rules. Their rules, unlike the perfectionist one's rules, the rules here are not moral or ethical. They are practical. They are rules based on the formula of what has kept them safe in the past. So they're pragmatic rules. We do it this way because we've always done it this way, this type of thing. And why do they show up like this in the world? Why do they need to belong and to keep people at a distance? Why do they need the show of competence? Because they are terrified that they might be incompetent. Incompetent means they don't know what to do in the face of danger. This type of danger equals death. They're fearful of insanity and chaos. I've got to keep it together, got to hold it together. Otherwise, God knows what will happen. It'll be chaos. And of course, chaos is represented as mental chaos or insanity. So I'm constantly, pretending that I've got my shit together and I'm the most sane and practical and reasonable person on the planet. And, like all of them, the game ultimately is exhausting. And finally, with the generalist, the eternal teenager, the Renaissance man or woman, the escape artist, they're trying to escape from pain by jumping over what they most fear. So you'll see what joke telling, uplifting, you'll see entertainment, you'll see them showing up happy-go-lucky like they've not got a care in the world. There's the sham. Underneath the surface, heightened fear of fear. I'm terrified of stopping. I'm terrified of emotional pain and physical pain. I'm terrified of missing out on life. These are the people who have the biggest fear of missing out on something in life. Fear of deprivation. So fear of fear and all these other fears here, and then the compensation spinning into these games. So for all of us, you'll see, what presents at the surface is the antithesis of what is taking place at the deepest level. Now, we can know that intellectually, and that'll give us something. The beauty of combining this with the work that I've been in love with and involved with my wife and a lot of other beautiful people for the last 26 years is that the journey shows us how to open emotionally and to allow a natural deepening to take place so that we can allow emotions to come and to go, and then to decondition the old mistakes that we've made in life, to change the old beliefs, to change the old form of reality that has kept us trapped in some sort of prison, and to allow us to get access to the old conditioning, traumas, wounds, hurts that we've experienced in life that have fed into these patterns, reinforced them, concretized them, and completely clean them out. The journey will combine so beautifully with the Enneagram in that it ultimately points us back not to the lie of the facade that we're experiencing when we look at these parodying pictures, but to the truth of our essence. There's the real value in the model. The Enneagram is an invitation to come home. Now, it's a dynamic model. I'm giving you a very, very simple overview here. There's a lot more to it. And the bottom line is, when you combine that with emotionally opening, clearing, and healing work like the journey, it's like it's leveraged. I mean, I don't know what, 10 times, 100 times over just randomly going, what am I facing? What am I experiencing? Oh, let me do some work to explore. So you see why I'm passionate about it. I know I'm passionate about it, Doron. There we go. And I know we've overrun time here. Like I'm enthusiastic. That's my only defense here. Okay.
I always cut it in 30 minutes, but in this case, with Brandon, it was 32 or 35. But it is very important. I want to share that, again, I thought at time too, when I experienced the work, the deep work together with you and Brandon, I experienced the fact that, first of all, I'm everywhere. So
yes.
Claire just wrote, I thought that I'm 9, but, I played all the games. Yes. Playing all the games, but there were few that I played more.
Sure.
So 2, 7, 8, 9 were really more. And when I did the work together with you, I was triggered mostly by 7.
Right.
And that, shook my, it changed the way
I wondered if it would, Doron, before you showed up, because I think Gabby had told me that you felt there was 2-ishness in your behavior, and I was going like, okay, whatever it is, it's not that. And I was sensing you in the kind of 7 and 8 blend there, because of course it's not just the core fixation. We have a blend with one of the points either side, which is called our dominant wing. And sure, we can behave in lots of different ways. We can be altruistic, loving, wanting to help people, wanting to reach out. But that does not mean that we're fixated at 2. All it means is that there is part of our makeup that is underpinned by some insecurity. The question is, what is that insecurity? What's the initial mistake? And then what have we come to fear in life as if it's life or death? And then that brings us back to some real basics that are, they're priceless in life. They can shift everything. I've got to tell you, before I learned this model, I thought no one understood my inner world. No one really got why, I could see all sides of an argument, fixated at 9 as I've been, why I wanted to diffuse arguments and just to bring people together in compromise, to act as the peacemaker, the ambassador, if you like. And then I read some books on the Enneagram, and I went, shit, it's like, this is laying out my inner world much more accurately than I've perceived it myself. It's like they were laying me bare in words, and I was going, man, okay, so, not only do other people really understand what is taking place here, but they get it a lot better than I get it. And that was priceless for taking into Journey Work, because I knew where to look. I now knew where my resistances were, where my core fears were, and I could go after those with a vengeance, with an efficiency, because I knew that the ego will pull you in any direction. Say, oh, look at this shiny object, distract here, and work on this lovely issue, and you'll be fine. And it's not that. It's like the Enneagram exposes the last thing in the world that you would have thought true about yourself, and it's exactly the thing that you need to look at to be free, to find liberation.
And again, and we will answer some questions from Prudence and Rani, but really the uniqueness of knowing this is not who I am, and the fact that you combine the Enneagram knowing plus the journey process brings you to freedom. That's the whole idea. And it's a deep work, and it doesn't happen in one workshop. It's an ongoing work in order to free yourself from what you thought that you are identifying with. But Prudence is asking, incredible discussion. Once we see our false identification, how can the Enneagram helps us wake up to our truer self? The Enneagram plus the journey, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. In my experience, it's exactly that combination, because the books you read that just describe the personality, I think of a tendency to label you and to keep you striving for some better version of what is a lie. And, there's some benefit in that if our behavior gets better, but it's not fundamentally resolving. When you combine it with journey work has, in my world, the unique ability to find ways to allow us to open emotionally to the things we've been closed to, so that we can meet them, allow those even scary emotions to upwell and to pass through and to lead us deeper to the next and the next. And then ultimately, if we're willing to surrender emotionally, we will plummet into a place where there is no emotion and there is pure stillness, openness, awareness. We fall into home. We fall into not just experience, but realization of self. And the journey has magical tools that would take too long to explain here, to get right to the core of the mistakes we've made and to debunk them, to pull the threads on them, and to allow us to see what is beneath all of this. It takes some courage. It's not for everyone, for sure. It takes willingness. It takes an amount of openness. And the techniques have been refined, I mean, obviously mostly by Brandon, because she's the pioneer of this work, but a number of us have been working with her to support her in that profound creative opening. And then, I know I'm being maybe a little bit vague here, but the journey is it's a tool of emotional opening and healing. And that is essentially what all of us need. We think it's about our mind. It's not. It's about the underbelly of unmet emotions. Even if we're emotionally identified, we think it's about the play of emotions. Ultimately, it's not. It's not about what we experience on a day-to-day basis. It's about what we've hidden from ourselves at the deepest level. Yes. We think with body that, we're this solid thing and that we need control. Ultimately, we don't. So obviously, with the journey, we test the absolute truth of these premises, and we find every one of them is false. And there is a possibility of a profound opening into radical awakening if we're willing to do that. Yes, as I say, it's not for everyone, and it takes some courage. Too much to it to explain in a short time here, but it's my experience and the experience of many thousands of people around the world for more than a quarter of a century that this is, it's a tool for radical liberation, for profound liberation. It was developed originally by the Sufis to allow people to work through the aspects of fixation. It was an oral tradition that was just passed on and passed on. And so you worked on one aspect of ego. And then, if in this lifetime that was worked through, you were passed on to next master, who specialized in one of these forms, who could teach you, the secrets by self-inquiry or whatever means. This has been synthesized into a model where we can really identify what are we asleep to, what are we not willing to admit in ourselves, because there's exactly where we need to look. There's the priceless underbelly of all of this.
Mm-hmm. So in a moment we will answer Orly, but Rani was asking, it is very interesting investigation or identification method to find out which of the Enneagram type we are or we are not. I'm adding, what sort of tools the system offer to heal those wounds?
Okay, so the Enneagram itself offers no tools. It's a purely descriptive model in the way that it's framed in modern times. The journey tools that we add into this are the tools that can heal the wounds. The origin of the name, it's just a Greek name that means nine-pointed or nine-sided model. It's as simple as that. So the Enneagram, look, there are loads of books out there, but they're going to take you back to the same place. Basically, they're saying, this is your personality, this is your character, and you are your personality or character. And so it's a typing mechanism that invites you to kind of grow within your type. And yes, you sure, look, there's some value in that, but there's far more value to give, to get out of the model if we realize that what the Enneagram is describing is actually a lie. Porat is saying here, do you give courses online? Yes, Porat, please join us on the official Journey community. And we are going to be starting Enneagram work online. I do give Enneagram courses online, but they're advanced courses at the moment. And in the coming weeks, I'm hoping, I'm developing a basic starter course for this that will describe the model and take people into the basics of journey work. I mean, I'm passionate about it because it's the most pointed way that we can self-inquire and come to freedom. I mean, it's not comfortable to go through this. I can't say that it is. I mean, for me, I kind of fought and had tantrums for a little while, in the early days. But damn, it was really worth it. I mean, I don't want to sound like a zealot, but I promise you, I couldn't have imagined living with innate passion and purpose in life the way that I wake up every morning. I do not need to hype myself up. I wake up with gratitude. I wake up with a sense of positivity that is indelible. And I'd lived from age 8 to nearly 38 with depression and stress and anxiety. And so you get why I'm so keen to share this. It is an extraordinary method of inquiry and clearing.
Yeah, so there is a lot of thank you from Rani, and we will really end with this gratitude for everyone that participate today. There was a lot of engagement and questions, and we have more than 120 people. We had 130 all over the.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm really grateful for people for tuning in, and grateful to you, Doron, for the opportunity just to speak in this way. And I know normally they're shorter, so I apologize and not really about overrunning time, because I think it's worth it. I think it's information that can catalyze an opening and a real depth of inquiry with people, and it genuinely can be totally life transforming if you do that. So I'm really hoping there's some value in what we've done here.
We'll finish with a quote from Dr. Prudence Hall. Yours and Brent is incredibly powerful and dear to me. In the no ego and advanced no ego, I fell into a melted space of feeling and seeing much greater truth of who I am.
Beautiful.
Awakening, liberation is exactly what happened to me and the entire group I was with. And incredibly, it is always present, always there. And
that's the truth. That is music to my ears to hear that. Yes, this invitation, this opportunity is there for all of us, Doron, as Prudence knows, as I know, as you know. So I pray that the world begins to wake up. God knows we need some more awakening at the moment.
So thank you for this passion, and for everyone that are not aware of, Gabi will put some links to all the materials that you are giving for free those days. Lots of materials every day. Beautiful. Talks and meditation and amazing gifts for all of you in this time of Corona, and of course after. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your
Thank you, Doron.
Soon.
See you soon.
Person.
Lots of love. Bye-bye now.